Welcome to the Samson Strength Coach Collective. On today's episode, we have Alyssa Calvert. Alyssa and I originally met at CSCCA. Alyssa is a mentee, former athlete of Whitney Rodden, who was on the podcast previously. We had a great conversation with. It was really cool to, first of all, meet Alyssa and somebody who was undergoing the CSCCA testing, which I reveal my secret. I finally reveal it that I'm not SCCC. I'm just CSCS, just a lowly CSCS. But it was great to hear about the testing process and then, hear from a young coach who I think is doing great things. So I really enjoyed this podcast. I enjoy all of them. I always say that every single time, but I truly enjoy all of them. It was really great to speak with her and understand her thought process and then learn a little bit more about the Olympic weightlifting world as well, too. So as always, I hope you enjoy and thank you for listening. Hello, Samson Strength Coach Collective listeners. On today's episode, we have Alyssa Calvert. Alyssa is a assistant strength and conditioning coach with Pembroke Hill. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, man, I'm excited to have you on. It was great to meet you. And, a mentee of Whitney Rodden, who was on the podcast previously. So we got to meet at CSCCA. And then you took the test, didn't you?
I did, yep.
How was your experience taking the test?
It was nerve-wracking, to say the least.
Yep.
But thankfully, I had Whitney to study under, and then my head coach at Pembroke Hill, Sam McGriff, he was super helpful on just trying to help me get ready for it. It was kind of like a surreal feeling, like going in there and seeing all of these other hundreds of strength coaches going in there to take that. And then talking to some other people and being like, yeah, this is my first time. Or like, I talked to somebody and they're like, yeah, this is my third time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what? So it was surreal, but I feel good about it. So fingers crossed.
So how long does it take to get results? This is actually like embarrassing to reveal. I'm not SCCC certified. I'm just CSCS. So yeah. How long does it take for you to get the results back?
So I took the written back in April, and they print out the sheet and give it to you, and they're like, look in 6 weeks. I was like, what? Why are you giving me a sheet of paper? So I took the written back in April, and then it's 6 to 8 weeks for that. And then once you do the practical exam, I think it's also 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, you've got a lot of time just waiting.
Yeah, I'm just every day refreshing for that email.
So I just recently did the starting strength, which is over in Wichita Falls, Texas. And so that one is, you do almost a very similar deal. You coach in front of a certified coach. It's just one coach though. So that's nicer, right? But the beautiful part is, immediately if you passed or failed. And so that was really nice. And it was great for me because I immediately knew I failed. So then I was like just relaxed for the rest and learned the experience. But it's funny you speak about that, right? Because we had a bunch of other coaches there were like, yeah, this is my third time taking the, certification, or, it was even the instructors themselves. Like they warn you before you go. They're like, dude, if this is your first time at the seminar, do not take the exam. Like absolutely do not. And I was like, well, come on, I've been coaching for a while. I probably got this down. And then like, I'm serious, within the first 5 seconds, I was like, oh, I failed this already. This is awesome.
Hey, at least you knew, like you were confident about that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And, it's different. That's what made me curious about it. Right. Is because I've now been coaching in front of people for, years. And so it doesn't make me uncomfortable whatsoever. But I remember my first couple years, like I could coach athletes fine, but if a head coach was watching or if one of my mentors was watching, I'd always kind of, get a little tense. And then that's where the anxiety would come out a little bit. So I can only imagine going into a room full of strength and conditioning, like legends, people who have been doing it for a long time and then having to coach in front of them.
Yeah, no, it was, and the worst part is they can't like interact with you at all. So it's like most of the time it's like, oh, I know that person. Luckily, I was far enough from Whitney's chair that I couldn't see her. Otherwise, I would not have been able to keep it together.
Okay, so Whitney was in the room?
Yeah, she was.
Are you serious?
Yeah, she was at a table. I kind of stayed more towards the front of the room, but I think she was at one kind of farther back in the corner. And once I was doing the actual lift part of the exam, I could see her, and I was like, oh no, I can't make contact with mom. I can't.
No, I mean, thank goodness she wasn't the one evaluating you, right? Because I
Yeah,
feel like,
so if I would have sat at her table, she would have had to like got up and left.
okay, okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. All right, see, you're
So
teaching me more than I've ever learned about the CSCCA. So, thank you, I appreciate it.
yeah.
Okay, well, let's kind of just get into it. Can you kind of give me your background in athletics and lifting, and then what's brought you to Pembroke Hill?
Yeah, so luckily back in 2021, kind of post COVID, it was time for me to go back to school. And so I actually reached out to Whitney through somebody that I knew, and I kind of recruited myself. Um which is it's great. But I had a Zoom call with Whitney, and the rest was history. I mean, we talked like numbers. Obviously, I had never just strictly been an Olympic lifter before. I was doing CrossFit, stuff like that. And the numbers that I had at that point got me to nationals. She was like, this is the money you got. This is your contract. I need you to sign it right now. And I was like, done. You have me. So fall of 2021, I transferred to MNU. And coming into MNU, I actually had tore my hip labrum, so I didn't even get to compete my first semester. And then had surgery in August, and then by the time March came around, I was at University Nationals, which is crazy to think about. So went to University Nationals, and then just really was building that relationship with Rodden that first year. And then I started coaching under her at Land Gym. So I helped her with football, which was quite the ride. But I loved it. It was such a blast. So I helped her coach football the whole time I was there. Did women's soccer a little bit as well. Did a lot of writing on the whiteboard because I had good handwriting. She'd be like, okay, go write out the workout today. That was my job every day. But just a lot of basically being in there 24/7. I didn't go anywhere but land at MNU because I didn't live on campus. So I was in there from the time I got there. I'd go to class and I'd come right back to the gym. Um, so then I just graduated there in December of this year, and luckily was fortunate enough to go to University Nationals every year. And then this last year actually got to go to summer nationals. So they have like different divisions. They have a U23 and a U25. So I got to go compete under U25 this year too. So it was just so thankful to get to have that experience with her and do all of that with her, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here, no doubt about it. Um, so then, just lots of hours in the weight room. And then I actually, so the way that they do, like work study at MNU, you get capped at a certain hours. So come my second year, I'd capped out in hours I could be in the weight room. So at that point, I no longer could work in there for the whole minimum wage that I got. Um, so I would still go in there, volunteer, and just be in there 24/7. And then I want to say it was last year, actually, no, what year is it? It's 2024. It was 2022 or 2023. I can't remember, but at some point, Rodden, she texted me. She's like, hey, somebody reached out to me from Pembroke, the head strength coach there. He's looking for a female coach. Would you be interested? And I was like, well, it's going to take away from you. Are you okay with that? um, she's like, yeah, I'll give you his info, see kind of what that whole scoop is. And I was like, okay. So I reached out to Sam, and we had a phone call. He was like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And actually only started off with 3 hours a week. That was my gig. I would go into the weight room after school 3 hours a week. So I had a couple interviews with him. I met with the assistant AD, and luckily I got the job. And then so started out there I think I started in October. So October through basically May. I was there 3 hours a week. I think during the spring semester, I might have even gotten bumped up to 6, which
Oh.
big spender there. So I got bumped up to 6 hours. And I mean, I made sure to get my hours every week, just show that I'm invested. I want to be there. And then summertime rolled around and we do summer weights. So we had a freshman, sophomore group, and then a junior, senior group, and then an all girls group. And so it started off with me just coming from the girls group, just because my hours were limited. And then I got to the point where we had so many kids at our summer sessions that we had to have more help. So they bumped me up to 12 hours during the summer. So I got to be there every day. And we kind of tried to implement new things. We did a lifter of the week. I'm like, what else can we do? Let's do this. Let's do that. And he was like, oh, okay, I guess we'll do it. I'm like, it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. And so he's been super awesome with my crazy ideas of like, let's try this. Let's do this. And he's like, really? I'm like, let's do it. Come on. And so then now I'm at 10 hours a week. I work all the sports events that I can. And they're like, hey, can you do the penalty clock before the cross? I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. So it's just a lot of like, where can I like try to get in there and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of where I'm at.
No, I think it's an awesome journey, and that's why I was really excited to talk to you about it. There's a lot of things that I'm curious about too, because it different realms that I'm not familiar with as a college strength coach, right? So the first one to me, and this was what kind of blew my mind when I spoke with Whitney originally, right, was the fact that there's collegiate Olympic lifting teams. I was aware, but I wasn't really aware of the full process, and then the fact that there's scholarships as well. So I've always been on the unattached side, right? Any competition, powerlifting, it's always been, oh, well, I was on Temple University Powerlifting Club, but it wasn't, it was a club. You can show up when you wanted, and then,
Yeah.
everybody ate pizza on the sides, right? And so, like, we didn't have a coach, or it would just be kind of one of our seniors who programmed for us, and then you can run your own program if you wanted. Can you kind of just break down for me, what your experience was being a collegiate Olympic lifter, and being a part of a team, and then being on scholarship with that specific sport?
Yeah. So the way and now I think we are actually the only school in Kansas that has an Olympic weightlifting team. So I think we're the only college. Granted, there could be some upcoming. I'm not quite sure. The only other big one I know around here would be Lindenwood, and they're Missouri. So with that, Mid America was a NAIA school, so that doesn't really fit into the rules of Olympic lifting. So since we were, a USAW sanctioned team, we didn't really have to follow NAIA rules. So there's no eligibility. Obviously, as a coach, Whitney, and then assistant coach Austin Healy, they tried their best to make it to where there were rules and you had to meet these requirements to be able to be on the team, just to make it fair. So we had study halls that we were supposed to meet. If you had a certain GPA, you didn't have to go to study hall. And then obviously you have to be enrolled in 1 credit hour for you to be able to lift at University National. So that's just would be a 3 credit hour course. But I want to say everybody on the team was in a full 12 credit hours. So there still was some expectations academically. So that was the one thing that was a little bit different, because like there's just so many rules around the NAIA world that I don't even know them all because we never really followed them. It was just like, we're all Olympic weightlifting. We can kind of do what I want. You're like the stepchild of MNU. Nobody really knows what's going on with us. We're just kind of there. But I would say a big thing that I feel like I did for the team at MNU was advocate for us, because since we weren't a team that benefited NAIA for MNU, they kind of forgot about us. We were kind of on the back burner. And for Whitney to start that team, as well as being head strength coach of every single team on the university. That wasn't fair to her. So there were a lot of times that I went in and sat down and told her, and I'm like, hey, they do an athlete of the week every week. We have not once had an athlete on there. That's not cool. Like, that's not fair. We work just as hard. We might be a small team, but we brought back at least, I think we brought back 3 or 4 medals this year from university nationals. So to not get acknowledged it kind of sucks. So I really pressured her to, like, you've got to tell them what we're doing. You've got to make it known. Every week there would be a newsletter being like, hey, this basketball plays here, soccer's playing here. And I'm like, okay, we have a home meet and we're not on there. Like, we literally have a meet on MNU's campus and we're not on the newsletter for the week. So I was very much so like, hey, who do I need to email to make sure that we are being known? We're being acknowledged as a team because we deserve it. We're awesome. We're in the weight room way more than any of the other teams. Granted, that's what we do, but still. So just really trying to make something of the team, as well as, like, still trying to have that team environment, because it is a individual sport. If you think about it, you don't have to make a team out of it, because you're just competing with yourself at the end of the day. So I think the biggest thing was trying to make that team environment while competing individually. So we had one team practice a week, which was Wednesday mornings. We implemented a dynamic warm-up together to make it more of like a team atmosphere, as well as just because our schedules are so different, we would still have like lifting groups. So on Mondays, I might lift by myself, but then Tuesdays, I've got a group with 3 other people, and we try to all lift together. And so it's just really still trying to bring everybody together in that sense of, well, I don't need to cheer you on. Yes, you do. We're a team. We might be competing in the same category. You might be a 64, I might be a 64. But even though I know you're better than me, I still can be happy for you. I can still cheer you on. I can still lift with you. It doesn't make me any less of an athlete, So it was a lot of trying to bring the group together as a whole and not allowing anybody to compare themselves to other people. At least that's what I tried to do on the team. They called me the grandma of the team because I am a little bit older. I graduated at 24, took a couple of years off. So a lot of people looked up to me on the team, which I'm extremely thankful for, but it was a lot of, like, even on the bad days, I had to show up for my team and be there. And, just because you have a bad lifting day doesn't mean you're a bad lifter. And so trying to instill that in all of the team and them and stuff. So yeah.
Well, that's just like coaching, right? And that's where
Yeah.
it's exactly it. A captain is just a coach who happens to be a player. So, as somebody who, when you show up, you have to have a great day, no matter what. And you have to be the one to
Yep.
lead it. And it's almost like every session, right? It's so
Yeah.
funny. I'll talk with other coaches, and it's a kind of almost unspoken. I didn't really hear it that much when I was coming up, but everybody understands it. It's like if it's a bad lift, 99% of the time it's because of the strength coach, right? I was in a bad mood beforehand, or something happened during the lift and I didn't react appropriately. And so it kind of turned it into a bad lift, right? Now, sometimes there's some things out of your control, but ultimately it's about how you dictate the situation and how you handle
Yeah.
it. So a very similar thing with your team, right? Is,
Yeah.
how can you handle, small disagreements or things that may not
Absolutely.
be going necessarily well, and then supporting your teammates through that.
Yeah. There was actually a time last semester where, freshmen come in and they're a whole different breed. Freshmen come in and they, like, 3 or 4 of them got a tiff. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm like, they had talked to coach and she's busy with 18 other things. And I'm like, all right. I sat everybody down in her office and I said, listen, I'm here, figure it out. I said, because the second you walk out of this room, we're done. Like, it's affecting the team. It's affecting how you're lifting. I'm over it. Like, the second you walk in this gym, your problems need to set aside. You need to do what you're here to do. And then if we can if we can help you solve that issue, we're here to help you solve that issue. But you can't let it bring down the team as a whole or the environment, because they're very much so is like, you walk into the gym, if you're in a bad mood, people know. Like,
Yeah.
you can't, it's just the way that you like hold yourself. And if you're in a bad mood, just people know. And so when it comes to Olympic lifting, it's such a mental game that if you're in a bad mood, you're gonna lift bad. It's just kind of how it goes. And so, yeah, there's been some times where I'm like, okay, I sat him down in the office and I was like, I don't want to be a part of it, but I'm here just in case stuff starts to go down. But figure it out, and it worked. I don't know how, but it worked.
It reminds me of when I was younger, my sister and I would always argue. My mom would make us hug each other until we weren't mad anymore. So it was always
Yeah,
funny. But
I'm like, hug it out and then get back out there and do your lift.
right, but your thoughts become your beliefs, which become your actions, right? So that's the
Yeah,
most important piece of the team. So I think Olympic lifting is so interesting to me. I've never competed in Olympic lifting, but from a powerlifting standpoint, or anything directly related to, this is a weight, that you may or may not be getting. What are you thinking before you go into that lift? What are your thoughts? If you're thinking you're not going to hit the lift, you're not going to hit it. That's almost 100% guaranteed. So that's
yeah,
why athletes I work with now, I always ask them, like, hey, do you think you can hit this? And then I
yeah,
even did it this morning, one of our sessions. And the guy was like, for how many reps? And I was like, 5, and I was like, that's a bad
yeah.
answer already, but he goes, 5. He goes,
Mm,
uh-huh. And I was like, all right, maybe. It was one of those middle of the road answers. I wasn't quite sure, but he did, so I was proud of him. But
yeah.
it's an important piece within Olympic lifting. You spoke about on campus necessarily kind of getting the recognition from, maybe on social media or things like Lifter of the Week. How was your relationship as a team with other athletes? Was it kind of that same deal where you felt like you had to bring up the legitimacy of the team a little bit?
Um, Honestly, I don't think so. I think we had a really good relationship with the other teams. Um, I think occasionally, and this is just kind of a typical Olympic weightlifter, but I would say the thing that would bother the team the most is when we were in the weight room practicing and people don't know the expectations of Olympic lifting. They don't know like the etiquette.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something we struggled with the most, was like other teams just not respecting Olympic weightlifting etiquette. But other than that, I don't think we had any tips, anything bad about other athletes. I think a lot of other athletes really respected us and what we did because they know it's not an easy sport. And with Whitney being the head coach, she makes them clean, she makes them snatch. And so they know how hard it is. And so I think, no, I think the community was great. I think there were a lot of other teams that supported us. I mean, there was an array of times that I'd be in there practicing and other teams would cheer us on. They'd be like, "Oh, that's so cool!" Like they cheer us on while you're lifting. So no, I think the community was fantastic, athlete wise. I think other teams really cared about us and we cared about them, and it was just, we were such a small sport. I don't think we've had more than like 20 athletes on the team at a time. So for them to kind of like show up for us, football team would come to our home meets and help us out, stuff like that. So I don't think that there was ever any issues with other athletes. They were always fantastic.
That's awesome. What are
Yeah.
those etiquette pieces that you speak about for those who may not be aware?
So in Olympic lifting, and it's inevitable, it's going to happen, but you're not supposed to walk in front of somebody while they're lifting. And so obviously, if you've ever seen pictures of Land Gym, we don't have the nicest setup, um, but it works. We make it work. And so a lot of times other teams would be in their training and we would be in their training. And there were times I had football players walking on my platform while I'm lifting. And I'm like, you have a lot of trust in me to not drop this bar on you right now. So it was a lot of like football players walking on the platforms as we're going, or, you know, other teams are doing their dynamic in front of us, or, you know, a team just got done with their lift and they're playing basketball in front of our platforms, and it's like, homie, that ball comes and hits me while I'm snatching. I'm not gonna be happy with you. There's just stuff like that. But a lot of times those are little like quirks that people have. And I would say by my last year there, I'm like, whatever, like you can't let it affect you because there's always going to be something that is happening while you're lifting. Granted, when you get to like the national level, it's a little bit more respected. But it was something that I had to sit down with a couple people. I'm like, listen, we don't have a bougie space. So people are gonna walk in front of you, you gotta get over it. Find a focal point and just get over it. So yeah.
It happened to me yesterday. I had the bar on my back, and somebody comes into the weight room. We have a real for some reason that door is so loud you can just hear it from a million miles away. And so somebody opens it, and I hear it, and I was like still looking straight ahead. And then I was like, well, they'll see I'm lifting, they won't say anything. Then they're like, Connor, and I'm like, all right, come on, man.
Oh,
So it
yeah.
happens. It's just how you just got to handle it. Yeah. How
Yeah.
was your experience competing at nationals?
Oh man, I had some crazy rides at nationals. My first year, obviously coming back from hip surgery, um, I think I bombed out. If we're being honest. Um, I I bombed. Yes, okay. I bombed out in the snatches. And I had a PR in clean and jerk.
Wow.
So great comeback. But it was very nerve wracking never being on a stage like that before. Never competing like that in any way, shape, or form. Was pretty crazy. And then my second year, I pretty sure I made some snatches, but I bombed out my clean and jerk. So just not a good wrap national wise. But then this past year in March at University Nationals, I had my best nationals yet. I had been having I was having a lot of consistency in my training, and then all of a sudden something changed and it just went downhill fast. And so there's Whitney, who's head coach, and then Austin, who is assistant coach. Austin had kind of taken me over by this point. And he had put in a total for me that was like 20 kilos higher than anything I've ever hit. So in university rules, there's a 20 kilo rule. So you can put in an entry total, but you have to start within 20 kilos of that. So I think he put in, my best total was like 134, I think. And he had put in like 150 something, 160 something. And I'm like, didn't tell me either. Like, didn't tell me at all. And so then it was like a couple of weeks before nationals, he sits me down, he's like, hey, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, okay. Like, we have a great relationship. So I'm like, all right, what's up? Like, what's going on? And he was like, so I kind of put your entry total like 20 kilos higher than your best. And I said, what? What do you mean? He was like, yeah, and yesterday was the last day to change it. I said, oh, all right.
We're locked in.
Was locked in. Put me in the A session. So I'm like up there lifting with the big dogs, and I'm like, all right, like all I can do is give it my best. And so come time for University Nationals, my coach, Austin, he's also lifting during my session. So he had an opportunity to lift on the Rogue stage. He's an amazing lifter, and it was an opportunity that he could not pass up. And I told him, he asked me, he's like, I'll not lift. I said, absolutely not. Like, this is your time to go lift on the big stage. Go do it. Like, I got this. So, it was, I had a great day. I think I missed one snatch. I hit a 58 snatch, which is 2 kilos off my best. So happy with that. And then I came out and matched my PR clean and jerk, which I think it was like 76 kilo clean and jerk, which I had never put together before. I had hit them separately, but never together. Wow. So that was super cool. And then I PR'd my clean. I had an 81 kilo clean. I missed a jerk, but I'm like, hey, I gave it my all. You weren't here. I made it work. So no, it was super cool, super rewarding. Like I just kept telling myself like, hey, I got to do it for my coach. He's not here. Um, which Whitney hadn't coached me in probably a year, like in a meet, just because they have to separate themselves and have two different teams to coach on meet day. And so Austin had been my coach, and it was Rodden's first time coaching me in a while, and so it was just really special to like have that moment as my last university nationals. Have her coach me during snatches, and then my coach came back and coached me during clean and jerks. Like to just go up in an A session and do my best and actually perform really well it was really special. So
I mean, it's fantastic, especially to, first miss snatches on your first time and then miss clean and jerk on your second time, but then put
yeah,
it all together and have a great meeting your last time is full
finally
circle.
come together.
Yeah, full circle.
Yeah,
Excellent.
definitely
Well, so we talked previously to the podcast, right? And I understood that you started off in athletic training, and then now you kind of
did.
made the transition over to strength and conditioning. What went into that process for you, switching over to strength and conditioning? What kind of appealed to you about S&C?
So yeah, I actually came to MNU as a nursing major, then decided that wasn't for me, and then switched to athletic training. And I was set on that for a couple months. And Rodden just kept telling me, "Are you sure you want to do this? Like, are you positive?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, I don't want to coach. I don't want to do it. And she was like, "Whatever." I'm like, "Okay." And so, I went. My undergrad is pretty much like kinesiology with an emphasis on athletic training. Um, so my whole undergrad is like ready to go over athletic training. Um, and honestly, I would say it was me taking the job at Pembroke that really like made that turn for me. Obviously, I coached at Mid America plenty of times. I loved it. I mean, I loved every second of it. It wasn't something that I ever thought about doing. Um, and so Rodden's undergrad is also in athletic training.
Yep.
I don't know if you knew that,
Yep.
but um, so her undergrad's athletic training, and then obviously she went strength and conditioning, but she just kept, I mean, almost every day. She's like, "You sure? Sure you want to do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, coach, I'm sure." And so once she got me that job at Pembroke, I think that's where it really turned. Working with high school students it's a lot. It's very it's tested my patience quite a bit. Um, just because we work with middle schoolers and high schoolers, and at that age, they actually have no clue what's going on. Like not a thought in their brains whatsoever. And Pembroke's a school where they are very academically intelligent. It's insane. Um, so we've got a good amount of kids that are so smart, but then they come in and they work just as hard in the weight room as they do on their academics. And so to see them come in and work hard when they have this workload on top of them, I think it was really cool to see. And it's like, oh, like there are some kids out there that like this is what they want to do. Like they want to come in here. And I think making a difference in the kids' lives. Like there was my first year at Pembroke, I had a student who wanted to Olympic lift. And so I actually took them to a meet at MNU and I got to coach them and just watch them fall in love with something that I love so much. I think that's where the turning point kind of happened. Just because I could connect with somebody else on that level and just like see the spark come for them and like them me actually make an impact on their life and what they are doing was just so special. And I'm like, okay, I think I could do this. I think Whitney might be right. So I think that's kind of really where the turning point came is just watching these kids, the light bulb go off and then PR their back squat or PR their clean and just watching them progress has been the most rewarding thing, I think, honestly.
Well,
So
it's the coolest part by far. It's so
yeah.
exciting and so much fun to watch somebody, first of all, do something that they think they couldn't. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it's so fun and it's just so I agree. I think it's one of the best parts of the job, and especially for me, it's when I can watch them connect the weight room to the field or the court or whatever they're doing, right? And they can see, okay, I physically wasn't able to do those things before, and now I can because we just trained, and that makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, it's amazing. I had a girl, she transferred in this year, and come fall, she had no idea how to clean. No clue whatsoever. And this week is actually max week for us, and she can clean like no other right now.
It's
Like
awesome.
one day it just clicked, and I'm like, who are you? Are you even the same student? Because she just PR'd her clean at 90 pounds. When she started with us, she could barely do the barbell. It was horrifying. And she just like, it's awesome. It's just, I, it's something I don't think athletic training could have ever given me. I think rehabbing kids to, and like being there for them in their most vulnerable time would be really special. But I feel like in the strength and conditioning world, we're prepping them for life. Like we're teaching them lessons that they might remember for the rest of their life. And we're teaching them these habits that, once again, they can carry on for the rest of their life. So I just think there's something really special about that.
Well, especially at the high school level as well, right? Because it's a much larger population that's not going to have the ability to continue on with their athletic careers. There's
Yeah,
even at a mid-major basketball level, we've got guys who, it's tough for them to get positions overseas in Germany or even like we had one guy go to Germany last year, and then maybe one other guy go to. I can't even remember exactly where he's at right now. Right? It's these smaller positions overseas, and that's the elite and the best of our team, right? And so to
yeah,
me, it's a big focus of what we do is you have to have the lifelong skills to be able to do these things. But then you take it another step with high school athletes because ultimately there's a reason I'm a strength coach, right? If I was really good at one sport, I'd probably be a sport coach at the end of the day because
right.
I love coaching. But what I was able to do, what I was good at, was the weight room, and so it's really interesting to me that aspect of high school sports where you get a large reach of people who you can really just inspire to be fit for the rest of their lives. And it may not be somebody who's getting a scholarship, but it is somebody who is a human being and is going to have a family, is going to be a leader for the rest of their life. So you have to teach them these lessons that they can learn in the weight room.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like all of these kids they're gonna go on to Ivy League schools. That's what they want to do. And granted, there'll be a handful that go for athletics, but a lot of times they use athletics to get into the big schools. Um, but it's just there's a lot of them that it's like they're playing sports now, but they don't want to play in college. So
Yeah,
it's like, okay, well, what can I do to help you so that you know what to do when you get out into the real world and you want to do these things. You go walk into a gym. I want you to have an idea of what you need to do. And be confident walking into somewhere and being able to do those things. I think that's the biggest thing. It's just them having confidence in the way that they move and knowing how to keep themselves healthy. You know?
absolutely. You can always
Yeah.
train for the rest of your life. No matter what your
Yep.
physical capabilities are, there's some way or some form that you can train. I'm going to start calling Whitney the AT Slayer, right? Because it's now two that I've heard of between herself and you. But
Yeah.
she did help to obviously inspire you to become a strength coach. What were some things that Whitney did that helps you build that kind of relationship, that mentor relationship, and helped you kind of understand, that strength and conditioning is a profession for you?
Oh man. So I always tell her, I'm like, you're just building a mini you know that, right? That's our joke, is it's like I'm her third daughter. That's what we say. Honestly, she's pretty much just another mom to me at this point. She The second I transferred to MNU, I was at a kind of a rough point in my life. I obviously I just had hip surgery. I lost my uncle in my first semester. And I just wasn't doing well in school. Transferring in from not doing any school to then having 12 credit hours, trying to be an athlete. I had no idea what I was doing. So I would say my first year there, I really like leaned on her and just being like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. Um, so she really looks at her athletes kind of as her family and all her kids. But I would say there's something really special about our relationship, and just like she easily would take me in if she ever had to. Not that she ever would need to, but if she had to, she would, no questions asked. Every trip that we had, for weightlifting, I always rode in her van. We always shared hotel rooms. And she just really made it a point to make sure to know what was going on in our lives outside of the weight room. She wanted to know what we did the past weekend. She wanted to know our family. And she makes an effort to communicate all of the things that she needs to communicate. Like, she's not just a coach, but she's a friend. She's a mom. She's all of it. And I couldn't be more thankful for that relationship, because I don't think, if it wasn't for her, I would not have stayed at MNU. No questions asked. So it's just the relationship that she makes with us is incredible. And she did everything she could for me. She got me the interview at Pembroke. She was my mentor for CSCCA. She's helping me get my CSCS. She does everything she can to help you succeed, which is really cool. Like, if you need something and you go to call her, she's going to answer. You need something, hey, coach, I have a question about this. I don't understand. She's going to text you back. She does. Granted, she needs to say no, but she never does. Like, especially for her people, she's always there. And so I think what really like locked in the transition for me was I wanted to be that for somebody else because of what she did for me. And I want to be that mentor for somebody else and be able to say, like, I taught somebody about all of this stuff, and I helped that one athlete get to the next level. And it's just, I couldn't say enough good things about her. She texted me this morning. We're going to get coffee here. So she's like, I miss you. Because, I'm trying to figure out this whole adult world. What am I supposed to do now? And so, I mean, I was used to seeing her literally every day. And now she's like, where are you? What are you doing? I want to hang out with you. So it's just, her being her is what made me want to do this.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that.
Well, exactly like you said, that's what's so cool about this career is that you can remember the people who helped you along the way, and then you can do the exact same for the people that you work with. And I feel like
Yeah.
it kind of gets lost a little bit because I think it's easy, somebody who's been coaching for a decent amount now, when sometimes it's easy to kind of come in and just check in for a lift and then, hope it goes well and then see people later. Right. And then certain things
Yeah.
kind of pop up, or it's always those lifts to me where, something challenging occurs and then you have to handle it, or something with one of the athletes happens. They talk with you afterwards, and so I remember being hesitant to kind of have those conversations when I first started because I wasn't a college athlete. I didn't really have a coach, so I didn't understand the role that a coach could have in a specific player's life. But after seeing it and hearing stories, obviously like yours, right? If I were to just talk with these players in the weight room all the time, it wouldn't really make a massive difference, right? We can have a pretty good superficial relationship, but ultimately, how much am I preparing them for life after sport, which is one of the things that I say we do in this program. So I think that communication piece and the ability to have those relationships is really key. So it's very heartwarming to hear that that's what you had with Whitney.
Yeah, she's great. There's a lot of times, just full on breakdowns in the room, and she would just hug me and be like, it's okay, like, it's gonna be okay. And she did, I don't know how many broken hip workouts she did with me. It's just insane. Every day I'm like, coach, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. And she's like, get that attitude out of here and let's go do we call them my old lady workouts. Let's go do your old lady workout. And so it's just like, she's just always there, always just doing what she could. And it's just, yeah, it's awesome.
It's amazing. And that's what this job is all about, in my opinion. That's what makes it so much fun. Well, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and speaking with you a little bit more. If anybody wants to follow you on social media or kind of reach out, what would be a good way to do that?
Um, so you can email me. I honestly don't mind giving my phone number either. And then also Instagram, that's probably the best way to reach me. I don't have a Twitter. I don't I know that's a big like platform for like strength coaching and stuff, but I don't have that. I'm also on the app from the conference. I don't know if like people communicate through that. I'm not really sure.
I'm not sure
But I
either,
still have
but
the app. I have no idea. But yeah, email or Instagram probably be best.
fantastic. And what would be the Instagram username?
So Instagram it's LYS and then Calvert CALVERT 14.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alyssa. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.